what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. Oh.
Moving to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready.
Move.
Up.
Move. Go.
Up. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Moving to the spare.
Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready.
We ready? Are we good?
We are watching a rally right now. Former President Trump was just in the middle of a speech when what sounded like possible shots were fired. We saw the former president, take cover. Security is now surrounding him and getting him out of the event.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold on, your head is bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus.
Obviously, a huge security concern there. People were screaming. Still unclear exactly what happened, but a very big security concern there for former President Trump. Secret Service agents now surrounding him. And they are taking him off the stage. So again, for anyone just joining us, former President Trump was just in the middle of a speech. This is his last campaign rally before the Republican National Convention. He just had to be rushed off the stage. There was some kind of commotion, potential, what sounded like shots fired. We're not sure if that's what happened, but that is what it sounded like. He took cover. We saw when he came back up, there was what appeared to be blood on his ear. Again, it's possible that that was from when he jumped down onto the floor to take cover. Still not a whole lot of information at all other than what we just saw. But security then rushed the stage, Secret Service surrounding the former president as he took cover on the ground. We heard people in the crowd screaming, and now just awaiting some more information. Former president then, as they got him up, he said, "Let me get my shoes," and put his fist in the air in defiance as they took him off the stage there and are escorting him out of the event. But he was just a couple of minutes into that speech that was expected to go much longer. He usually talks for about an hour at these events. He clearly was just getting started. This is a very unexpected security issue there at this rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And this was a big moment for the former president. Again, his last rally before the beginning of the Republican National Convention. He has yet to name a VP pick. He has promised to do so before the convention starts. A lot of people were watching this speech very closely, and now you can see the motorcade there, former President Trump being escorted completely off the grounds. A big scare there at this rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And still waiting to find out any information there. R.J. O'Brien is in Milwaukee, where the Republican National Convention is set to kick off tomorrow. Jay, any reaction to what we just saw and heard there?
Well, Diane, I've been watching the video playback over and over, and I just want to help our audience understand the sequence of events here. So the former president was speaking. He was gesturing off to his side, just talking about something that appeared to be in the crowd. And then he swats at the back of his neck. There's a popping sound, and he swats at the back of his neck, almost like he's swatting away a fly. Again, we do not know if the former president was injured anyway. We do not know what the popping sound was. Just as that popping sound occurs and the former president swats at the back of his neck, again, according to the video that we were watching, that's when Secret Service converges on the former president. They obviously bring him down to the ground to protect him. A tactical agent then gets onto that stage as well with their assault rifle to block anything else. Again, we don't know what exactly transpired. And then, as you noted, and as you were just narrating over, the former president was ushered off the stage. He was able to stand, and he put up a fist to signal to the audience, it appears, that he was okay. And he walks off the stage with the Secret Service agents. But obviously, you could hear it in the tape there. There was mass confusion. There was screaming in the crowd. And there is still this uncertainty for you and myself, who is not there. I'm in Milwaukee, where the National Convention is, the Republican National Convention. There is this uncertainty settling in as to exactly what transpired there just moments ago.
Yeah, Jay, and our teams on the ground are saying it sounded like shots fired. Of course, we can't confirm that just yet. Right now, we just know there were these popping sounds heard at the rally. And what you described, former President Trump there in the middle of his speech, took cover, jumped down onto the stage, security guards on top of him. They surrounded him. He then got up, said, "Hold on, let me get my shoes." They kept him surrounded, again, not wanting, obviously, him in the view. If someone was shooting, they obviously didn't want him in a vulnerable position. But he stood there for a while, fist in the air, defiant, and fist in the air, defiant, as they took him off that stage and finally put him into the SUV, into the motorcade, and they drove off. So still waiting on reaction from Trump's team, from other teams on the ground, and from law enforcement to find out more about what exactly happened there in Butler County, Pennsylvania. But a big scare for this crowd. They've been waiting, some of them for hours, to hear the former president, and this was just a few minutes into his speech, Jay. How concerning is a security event like this, especially so close to the Republican National Convention?
The Secret Service takes no chances with the former president's security, any major candidate of any party. They take no chances with the president's security either. I can tell you, we're here in Milwaukee because of how high profile an event this is. There is a massive security perimeter set up around the site of the Republican National Convention. But even at a rally like that, there is still significant security. Typically, and again, I'm not at that rally, but typically there are magnetometers that screen the audience for any kind of weapons or any kind of metal. They have to go through those magnetometers, people in the audience do, before they can go into the rally. Typically, there is also a relatively wide security perimeter there as well. It's somewhat more challenging there because it is outside rather than an indoor venue, but they typically have these, what Secret Service agents will tell you are these concentric circles of security, meaning a very tight security bubble around the principal, which in this case would be the former president, and then another layer of security that has very heightened security as well, but not as much as that first circle. And then obviously it ripples outward from there. The other thing I can tell you is I've talked to former Secret Service agents who have received this kind of training, and what you saw play out there is exactly by the book as it relates to Secret Service, at least as far as I can tell in watching the feed. They immediately jump onto the former president and they form this ring around him, as we saw in the video, to protect from any kind of assailant or any other kind of danger that might come from a 365-degree angle. They're on top of him while he's on the ground as they do that. And then when he stands up, you saw that they were standing around him. They also had, as you saw in the video, that tactical agent with the long gun and the body armor and the tactical gear standing on the stage in the immediate moments after that popping was heard to make sure that there was no additional threat that could confront the former president. Again, we do not know what that popping was. And certainly, as you and I have been noting over the course of the last few moments, there was serious panic in the crowd there. You could hear it in the feed. You could hear people screaming because it is still unclear exactly what transpired.
Yeah, we could hear people screaming for sure, Jay, and clearly a lot of concern. And clearly the former president himself was concerned and ducking for cover there as security agents came to protect him. I want to bring in our ABC News political contributor, former Republican congressman of New York, John Katkow. John, you've been to a lot of political events. Have you ever seen something like this?
No, thankfully, but this is deeply troubling. And just when you think the national political scene couldn't get much more bizarre, this happens, and it's whether you love Trump or hate him, you guys got to pray that he is okay and that no one else has been injured. If this was in fact an attempt on his life, but boy, oh boy, this is bad stuff.
Jay, where does the investigation now go from here? I ask because I know you talk to Secret Service a lot, and you've seen a lot of the security and how they run around these events. Jay, what do they do now to try to ensure the RNC is safe if something like this may have just happened at the rally before it? Jay, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but just based on your vast experience with these events, how do they go about now ensuring that the RNC in Milwaukee, where you are, is safe if there was a potential security breach here at this rally in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, you can only imagine, and forgive me, Diane, we did have one quick issue, but I'm back with you here. You can only imagine that the heightened security presence here in Milwaukee, which was frankly already high. I mean, our hotel is right next to the Fiserv Forum, and you can't drive a car to where we're staying because of how tight the security is. They have this massive security perimeter put up. You can only imagine now, depending upon the nature of this incident, depending upon exactly what it is, that security will be heightened to another degree that would not have been foreseeable. Because if this was something significant, if those pops, for instance, were gunshots or anything of that nature, which we do not know, you can only imagine the security here will be heightened. I do have a little bit of political reaction to share with you. Again, this is all very fresh. No one quite knows what has happened. But we did get a tweet from J.D. Vance, who is one of the three we know to be on former President Trump's short list in terms of vice presidential picks. J.D. Vance is one. Marco Rubio, Senator of Florida, is another. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is the third. And J.D. Vance has tweeted, quote, "Everyone join me in praying for our President Trump and everyone at that rally. I hope everyone is okay." Again, we do not know at this hour what transpired at that rally. It's unclear if Vance even knows what transpired at that rally. But that's the first reaction we're getting.
We're coming on the air with breaking news right now. We're getting word that former President Donald Trump, during a rally in Pennsylvania, you can see the video here. There were loud noises. It's unclear exactly what happened, but the Secret Service then rushed onto the stage, and you can see them right there, escorting the former president off the stage. Following this moment, there was some screams, some chaos in the crowd. Let's go ahead and bring in our Rachel Scott, who was there at this campaign event, and she's still on the ground right now. Rachel, what did you see? What did you hear?
Within minutes of former President Donald Trump taking the stage, we heard a series of popping sounds. Within seconds, it appeared that Secret Service then rushed up onto the stage as members of the crowd started screaming. Then the former president was taken down to the ground for several moments. And then all of a sudden, he did emerge back up as Secret Service was escorting him off of the stage. He did raise his fist in acknowledgement that he appeared to be okay. We did hear the crowd cheer. The former president was then rushed into his vehicle and taken out of this rally. It was extremely tense and chaotic moments here as you had members of this crowd, Trump supporters that came here to see the president today. They rushed to the ground. They dove for cover. It was frantic. There was yelling. There was screaming. Ultimately, the situation appears to be cleared now. We have members of the crowd behind me that are now leaving, but the podium left disheveled behind me. The sign left tilted. The former president, though, did appear to be okay as he was escorted off of this stage very quickly and into that vehicle with.
And Rachel, just for your awareness, we are looking at this video playing back, and you see Trump pumping his fist, cheering, with the crowd cheering as this all played out. Again, you described those loud popping sounds. There were reports of potential gunshots, but are you able to confirm anything like that at this time?
At this time, we are not able to confirm what exactly we heard. All I can tell you is that I was standing right here on the riser. We just finished doing a hit with you on World News Tonight, and it was just minutes after the former president took this stage. And that is when we heard those series of just popping sounds. And that was then followed by people in the crowd screaming, everyone yelling to dive for cover, including us, members of the press. We got off of this stage. We dove for cover ourselves. Members of the crowd also tried to get underneath their chairs, put their hands over their head until we knew that the situation was clear. Once we saw the former president then rise back up from the stage after he was surrounded by Secret Service, we did see him put his fists up in the air. The crowd then cheered, and we watched the former president as he was escorted, surrounded by Secret Service, off into his vehicle. Now, separately, over on my right shoulder here, there was some commotion going on over in the bleachers, and we did see several Secret Service agents appear to surround someone over there in that area. Whoever that was eventually removed, but we have no idea necessarily what happened here, but certainly definitely tense and chaotic moments that played out here at this rally.
And of course, this was supposed to be a major rally right ahead of the Republican National Convention and the possible announcement for Donald Trump's running mate, which we were expecting at any moment. Rachel, forgive me, I'm not sure if you were trying to speak with us right now. Rachel, were you trying to say something else? I couldn't hear you. Okay.
No, go ahead. No.
Forgive me. We were just, I was seeing the video played back. It looked like you were speaking to me at the moment. But again, we're going to get some more information right now. We're going to Mary Alice Parks, who's our White House correspondent. She's standing by. Again, the details just trickling in. But Mary Alice, what are you hearing tonight?
Yeah, not much yet. No formal comment yet from the White House. Whit, I've been in touch with members of the president's national security team. They are clearly in a fact-finding mode right now. We don't know many more details. So many people watching this live. We were watching this live. We do know the president is in Rehoboth. He just left church. A member of the press corps that was traveling with him shouted, asked if he had been briefed. The president said he had not yet been briefed. He had just been, like I said, leaving church. He is spending the rest of the weekend there in Delaware. No doubt the White House will be working on talking to Secret Service as soon as possible. I mean, the concern, of course, is beyond this being a political event. This is a national security moment. I mean, this is a former president. This is the presumptive Republican nominee. This is Secret Service's worst nightmare in many ways, the idea that there could have possibly been shots fired there. Look, I'm looking at that picture too, replaying that video there, where it makes such a difference, of course, to fans, to the whole country, to see him be able to stand up, to fist pump like that. But no doubt the White House here is working on getting exactly to the bottom of this and figuring out how exactly to keep him and all other candidates safe at this time.
And Mary Alice, again, we don't know exactly what happened, what played out here, but we do know that this comes at a moment of extreme division in this country. And we know that law enforcement officials in Washington have been warning of potential politically motivated attacks.
Absolutely. That's something that law enforcement officials talk about, frankly, at all levels, at the federal level, with FBI, with Secret Service, but also at the local level. Like you mentioned, we are just on the eve of the Republican National Convention. This is such a high-stakes, high-profile security moment. We know that law enforcement is anxious about those sort of flagpole moments, those political moments that get so many eyeballs. They set up, huge security perimeters to try to keep those events safe. This was a high-profile political rally, but you're right, it comes at a time when law enforcement is so worried that the division in our politics has led to the possibility of violence, as scary as that is, Whit.
All right, Mary Alice, stand by. Thank you very much. I want to go to John Karl, our chief Washington correspondent. John is in Milwaukee, the site of what is to be the Republican National Convention this week. John, what are you hearing from your sources? John Karl, are you able to hear me? All right, we've lost John for a moment. We're going to try to get him back. In the meantime, let's go back to Rachel Scott, who's still there on the scene. And Rachel, one thing that surprises me to some degree about looking at your live shot location, there still seem to be people gathering in that area. Did they not evacuate the venue right after the president or former president was escorted away?
Yeah, this is certainly clearing out now, and I'm just going to step aside to give you sort of a lay of the land of what we're seeing here. So if we could just push in on the podium right there, you can see that the sign has actually fallen off of the podium. This is where the former president was surrounded by Secret Service agents as he was then rushed off of this stage after we heard these popping sounds. And I want our camera to just veer here to the left. You can already see here, you see law enforcement officials right now. They're putting up this caution tape around this area. This is very much an active scene at this moment. You see law enforcement officials, they are taking notes. We're starting to see the presence of law enforcement officials increase as this area has now started to be cleared. Of course, you can see the amount of chairs that have been tossed and turned over. It just shows you how chaotic these moments were. I cannot stress this enough. To hear those popping sounds and then all of a sudden to just see people just dive for cover, people yelling, get down, cover your head. We did not know necessarily what those were. There are photos of the former president covering his ear. He did, as I mentioned before, after he was surrounded by Secret Service agents, he did get up, he raised his fist in the air. It was a sign to his supporters that were gathering here that he was okay. His supporters then cheered. But I can tell you there were several minutes after this where the crowd just didn't necessarily know what to do as the former president was rushed off of the stage. They didn't know whether or not they should quickly leave, rush out of here, whether or not they were safe, whether or not they could stay in place. The rally obviously officially ended after that, and then that's when we started to see people stream out of this area. Many members gathering here today, visibly shaken by what occurred. We are now seeing a helicopter that appears to be landing closer to where we are here at this rally. Just tense and chaotic moments that played out here in a situation that is still developing and unfolding, Whit, as we still await details more what happened. Whit.
Rachel Scott Forrest, thank you so much. I do want to ask you quickly before I let you go here. You've been to so many of these different Trump rallies over the years. Security is obviously incredibly tight. Tens of thousands of people go to these things. Can you just talk about what it's typically like when they search people as they go in?
Yeah. Absolutely, Whit. So in order to get into a rally with the former president, you do have to go through a Secret Service check. So you walk through a metal detector, similar to what you would walk through if you were at the airport, if you were about to board a flight. You are searched by Secret Service through a metal detector. Secret Service then goes through your bag as well to make sure that you do not have any items that are barred. Typically, people aren't even allowed to bring in large backpacks or large items as well, because this is an event with the former president. And members of the press are allowed to bring our laptops in. But I could tell you that Secret Service takes this very seriously. They do screen every single person that enters these rallies. And because of that, the lines often get very long as they are waiting to get people cleared in order to enter these rallies. Security is utmost important for the Secret Service. We have seen that at every single rally that we have gone into. We've seen people be turned away maybe because they brought something that they weren't allowed to have, or maybe they had to leave something with Secret Service. They could not enter the rally. So they are diligently checking every member that enters these Trump rallies. Clearly, we do not know exactly what happened here today. We are still learning details, and of course, we'll bring those to you as we have it. But one thing I can tell you is there are definitely security precautions underway for anyone that wants to enter a rally or an event with the former president, Whit.
Stand by for us. I do want to point out this photograph right here that we've been showing with former President Donald Trump pumping his fist. If you look closely, there does also appear to be some blood trickling down over his right ear. Again, we don't have confirmation on exactly what happened. We're waiting for more information from officials. But there is that photograph, and you see the former president's face right there as Secret Service escorted him off the stage, off the podium, into the back of a SUV, and then out of the area. And you see him, as the incident happened, reaching for his right ear. Let's bring in John Karl, our chief Washington correspondent, if we can get back to him. He's in Milwaukee, the site of the Republican National Convention. And John, I understand you were with Republican Party officials as this event unfolded.
I was on the floor here of the convention where they're preparing. This is the site where Donald Trump is to officially become the Republican nominee next week. The convention set to start on Monday. I was actually with the chairman of the Republican Party, Michael Whatley, as this news happened of the shots ringing out, and he very quickly rushed off, took a phone call, very hurriedly rushed off the floor. Obviously, a shocking development.
All right, John, thank you. I do want to go back to Rachel Scott, still on the scene, but I understand they're escorting the rest of the media and everyone out of the area. Rachel, what more can you tell us?
Yes, and we will join you once again when we get out of this area. Right now, Secret Service has told everyone in this area that they do need to leave. We can only take what we can carry. Everything else sort of needs to be left behind. They're closing off this area that you're seeing. I'm gonna get off the air now and escort out, and I will get back on with you when I can, Whit.
Rachel, thank you again for your reporting, and we're so glad that you and the rest of the team are safe. Again, this is that video. This is that moment. Former President Trump pumping his fist to the cheers of the crowd there in Butler, Pennsylvania. I do want to mention again, because this was all coming at an event in Pennsylvania that was supposed to come before the Republican National Convention. All eyes on the former president about his potential running mate. That decision was expected any day now, and we're hearing from some of these hopefuls. VP hopeful Senator J.D. Vance took to X calling for people to pray for Trump and everyone at the rally. He says, quote, "Everyone join me in praying for our President Trump and everyone there. I hope everyone is okay." We also heard from Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who is also on the short list to be a potential running mate. He tweeted, quote, "Praying for President Trump and all those attending the rally in Pennsylvania today." Let's go back to John Carl in Milwaukee. John, we're still getting some of these photographs coming in. Are you getting any more information about what actually happened?
No more information on what happened. I can tell you that officials here are scrambling to find out more. You mentioned that this comes as Trump is preparing. I mean, the event there in Pennsylvania was to be the event leading into the convention. What was happening just moments before this news broke out was officials scrambling to try to gauge what former President Trump's timing would be into announcing his running mate, with a bit of a scramble that he might do it, in fact, at that event in Pennsylvania. Look, we've now heard, you mentioned hearing from J.D. Vance, hearing from Marco Rubio. We've also heard from Doug Burgum. So we've officially heard from all three of the people who were just with Donald Trump, waiting to hear his final decision about which one of them will be his running mate, all going to X to say that they are praying, for former President Trump and for everybody at the rally, but not knowing what actually has happened, not knowing, what has actually happened besides what we saw there in that incredibly horrifying video, hearing shots fired and former President Trump being brought down by Secret Service agents.
All right, John, stand by for us. We are getting some reportable information here from our producer, Josh Margolin. He is saying that the Secret Service is assessing. They have not confirmed it was actual shots or any kind. Unclear where what appeared to be blood in that photograph is coming from. So if we show that photograph again, this was sort of the close-up of former President Trump as he was being escorted off the stage. There it is. Again, it appears to be blood, but we cannot say for sure exactly what happened, if that came from a shot fired, which we don't know, or if it came from when he was tackled to the ground. But we did see the former president reach for his right ear as the chaos unfolded at that event in Pennsylvania. Once again, this was supposed to come right before the announcement for his potential running mate pick. Many people were watching this event very closely to see what would happen. Would he give any hints? Would there be any teases about, who he might choose to be his running mate as we head towards Election Day? Again, all of that stopped abruptly by this chaotic moment at this rally in Pennsylvania. Let's bring in John Santucci, our investigative reporter. And John, you have very close contacts with the Trump family. What reaction are you getting from them? What are they saying about what happened tonight?
Whit, it is absolute panic within Donald Trump's inner circle right now, frankly, Whit, because the lack of information. As you mentioned right there to our viewers, Donald Trump has spent much of the weekend talking to potential vice presidential picks. Much of his family is not with the former president right now. But I can tell you, from speaking to at least the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., they do not know what has happened at Pennsylvania, and they are trying to find information. And that image, Whit, I can tell you multiple sources are telling me it has caused a great deal of panic. Obviously, as you mentioned, ABC News does not know exactly what happened at the rally, but that image of what appears to be blood running down the president's face has caused significant alarm. And look, we should note, Whit, that, look, Donald Trump, for many years when he was campaigning, I know in 2016, from his first campaign for the White House, always took extra precautions, like has talked so greatly about the Secret Service, feeling protected, having them around him. When he, of course, started his campaign before Secret Service protection.